Good morning, everyone. What's up? It's Lorian Locke, and we will be reacting to Netcrit's latest video on the supposed or theoretical Riot MMO, talking about bosses and raids. I have a new model since the last video where he did his one about classes. And I guess to reiterate my experience, I have like zero MMO experience. I've just played Final Fantasy 14 to like level 60-ish. I'm not even level 60 yet, actually. I've played a little bit of Albion Online, Elder Scrolls, a tiny bit, like literally like a couple hours. So I know nothing about RPGs. Most of my RPG experiences in like video game RPGs and Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop RPGs, Pathfinder, all that shit. So that's sort of my mindset, where I'm going with this. And I also know a lot about Riot lore. I know more about League of Legends lore than anyone really should. So that's a bit about my background, and let's get into the video. Hold on. Okay.
Well,
is that loud enough?
hello there. It
Make it
seems
a
like
little louder?
people really enjoy it when I talk about things covered in deep layers of copium. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think
a
we're
little
riding
louder?
on copium that much. So far, I have not made up a single thing. I am simply presenting things that already exist. And as my videos got traction,
League is
I
stinky,
started
thank
getting
you.
some valuable feedback. So before we begin today's video, let's have a look at some of the things you just had to point out.
What?
For those of you who believe we are
What?
starting unhealthy hype, it's fine. As long as we all understand that we are dealing with hypotheticals.
Okay.
And that we will all be bold by the time it comes out. I also
Bald.
got to interview the person who wrote the upcoming massive League of Legends novel, who was confirmed to now be working on the MMO. And he told me that, yes, my videos are being passed among the developers. So you can stop tagging them on Twitter now. Also, that novel is insanely good. It's Game of Thrones in League of Legends.
I've heard it's really good. I don't read. I can't read, so I'm probably not gonna read it, but
yeah, I am wearing my slippers out of my own volition. Yes, shamans can shapeshift in this universe, just like druids. And yes, Riot confirmed that Legends of Runeterra, which is the card game based on League of Legends, is a big inspiration when it comes to the world building.
Of course, it has to be. It's the only world build.
All
I'm sorry.
the art I am showing you
sorry.
comes from Legends of Runeterra, a game that secretly acts as a
Legend of Runeterra is technically non-canon, but like it's the most world building that's ever been done for League of Legends. All the little followers, all the little units, all the descriptions, all the spells, all the places, the landmarks, dude. Literally, like, it's a dream come true for world building, dude. Like as someone who really loved the League of Legends lore and then went to Legends of Runeterra, holy shit, dude, it's so awesome.
Archive of
Not
art
canon, by the way.
reveals this universe. Anyway, after covering the world and all the races and classes,
It's not canon to League, which barely means anything. That's
we
true.
can
I
now
mean, the
dive into
MMO
the
might also
potential
not
endgame
be canon
bosses
to
of
League,
this MMO.
which would
Now
be
I know
fucking
what you're
stupid. But
thinking.
considering Arcane
This
and
game
Runeterra
isn't
isn't
even
canon.
in the playtesting phase. How can we talk about the raids? Well, you see, that's because Riot was
Do you guys mind if I
probably
speed it up a
thinking
little
ahead
bit?
of time.
I'm gonna speed it up a little
They started
bit.
a bit of a meme in the lore community. They gave this universe way too many world-ending threats.
They
The
did.
downside of
They
this
did.
is that, yeah, there was a time when we didn't know which world-ending threat was the real world-ending threat. It was a battle between who's the biggest evil.
You can have
but the
more
benefits
world-ending
are
threats.
obvious. You have a lot of meaningful enemies that you can remove before you start limiting your storytelling. And in fact, many of these big storylines are written with all the back doors open, so that in the future they can utilize them for an event in League of Legends, or it is stories that were left open purposefully for the MMO. And that's what this video is going to be.
Purposely. Purposely. Yeah, Riot left these things vague on purpose. Alright.
About. Originally,
It's
I
just
wanted
gonna be
to show you
shitting on
10
Riot.
storylines that were left open and which would lead into raids. But if you look at the length of this video, yeah, I cut it down to only 7. So without further ado,
Lamo, he doesn't even
let's get on.
finish!
Since we are essentially talking about the world of League of Legends, especially if you have seen our last 2 MMO videos,
Sion
it
should be a
goes
raid
without
boss.
saying that this world has
He's
material for
undying.
hundreds of
Sion should really be a
instances.
raid boss.
This
Good morning,
means that
Kirak,
it's really
welcome.
up to Riot to cherry pick which ones they want to do. And since in this video I am only going to mention 7 of these, it is highly likely I am not going to mention the one that you would like to see. But if you feel strong about your own idea about a dungeon, feel free to comment about it below. This is all valuable feedback for the developers after all. Anyway, the 7 raids I picked are based on one simple
I can kind of do
fact.
that after the video.
Their stories and setting are perfectly fit for a raid environment. Be it because their stories are set up for a grand finale, or because some of these villains already have a cast of supporting bosses for the raid. Or simply because the battles would be really cool. And because showing is better than telling, let's start with the first raid. One with such a good setup, the raid essentially writes itself. The Ascension of Mount Targon. As you may remember, Mount Targon was created by the Celestial Gods to serve as a gateway to the Celestial Realms. And people decide to climb this place for a variety of reasons. Even though only about 1 in 10,000 makes it to the peak, some people try to climb the mountain because they want to be deemed worthy and become a celestial demigod, while, for example, the Massians send their criminals here to die trying to climb the mountain. This death sentence is called the Crown of Stone. And yes, of course, you can't really force the criminals to climb the mountain unless you go there with them. So most criminals just flee and start a new life elsewhere.
Yeah, I would just, you know, I'm Shuriman now.
We can find Aurelian's soul, the Starforger. The reason why he is here is because of the crown he is wearing. Long story short, thousands of years ago, when people noticed that Aurelian was crossing the stars, they started worshipping him, which boosted Aurelian's ego. And they crafted him a crown of celestial star metal. Aurelian, already being quite egoistic, donned the crown, only to realize it was a mind-controlling device. In reality, it was the Celestial Aspects who wanted to hold Aurelian's power the entire time. Now, to be fair, the Aspects are using Aurelian's powers for good cause. They are using his celestial fire to purge the void from—
Here's my one thing that's kind of like, I don't know about Mount Targon being a whole raid. Like, I feel like climbing a mountain, like, maybe if you start at, like, a ledge where the Solari you're at, and then you go to the tip, the peak, you know, like, you take an helicopter, you fast travel over there, right? That would make sense. But, like, a whole mountain being a raid sounds fucking exhausting. That sounds like a post-game mega dungeon, like the Chrysler building in Parasite Eve, you know what I mean? So maybe if it was like an— well, actually, I guess the game wouldn't start, like, in this theoretical MMO, it would start with Noxus and Demacia, and Targon wouldn't be added till a lot later down the line. So that makes a lot more sense for it to be like a super mega dungeon where you end fighting Aurelian Soul. Like, or the Pit of 100 Trials from Paper Mario: The 1,000-Year Door. Like, something like that. Like, literally like 100 battles up the fucking mountain with, like, dragons and shit. That would make sense. If it's, especially if it's gonna be released in, like, the 6th expansion or whatever. So I take that back. Actually, that sounds cool for it to be that late in the game's life. Well, I don't know, late in the game's lifespan, but, like, that down the line. Another problem is, like, when you climb the mountain, you're supposed to become a Celestial. So how the fuck is that gonna work? Like, in that expansion, like, you have to do that raid to get, like, that expansion's power boost, maybe? Like, it's the next 10 levels, but you have to do that to, like, do it. Like, in Final Fantasy kind of way. I don't understand how that works. Like, unless every single time you do the raid and the dungeon you get to the top, Aurelian Soul's like, you're not worthy, you have to fight me, and then you fight him every single time. That works, I guess.
From Runeterra. But still, it is the Celestial Aspects who enslaved Aurelian. Anyway, Riot can make up a billion reasons why we should raid this place. Though I doubt we would be able to fight Aurelian Soul at the very peak. You know, he is made out of space. But maybe we need to reach the peak to borrow some of his powers. Or maybe we need to kill a rampant aspect. Or maybe we just need to reach the Celestial Realm for another reason. Simply said, it is easy to make up a reason for this raid to exist. What's more interesting—
I think you can fight Aurelian Soul, why not? Why not fight Aurelian Soul? It's a raid. You up to 16 people, you're not gonna kill him. You know, like, if you fight a restricted, even if it'd be like a redesign of, like, the crown is, like, I don't know, whatever. And he's, like, imagine him just, like, chained up, and you fight him, like doing blasts and raid attacks, and you have to, like, hit him as best you can. And you basically just, like, you fight him till he's bored. I don't think a raid boss necessarily means you need to kill it, you know? I mean, it's perfectly— shut the fuck up! It's perfectly logical that this would even be repeatable, you know, that's kind of a thing. Like, Final Fantasy XIV I'm playing right now, and a lot of the early raids are kind of like one and done story-wise, and they're only repeatable because it's a video game, which I don't mind. But, like, this would be an actual reason why it keeps happening. You keep climbing the peak to keep hitting Aurelian Soul in the face, and he's just like, stop it. And then, you know, you do it over and over again for levels, EXP and shit. You literally would not be able to damage him? Oh. I mean, I guess, but also it's a video game? I don't know. I feel like that BS to right away being able to damage Aurelian Soul is better BS to write than you can't fight Aurelian Soul. You know what I mean? Like the aspects where you start give you the power to touch Celestial, so you could beat the shit out of Aurelian Soul, you know? I mean, temporarily, you know? Like, for a raid dungeon, I feel like people want to fight Aurelian Soul. People want to fight Scion, these big bosses. I mean, the dude is this big, his face would be the sky. True. chat making sense in my face like this. Gotta start walking my room after hearing your voice is surreal for a second.
At different levels, the mountain presents you with different enemies.
Wait, why?
So let's start with what would happen once you enter the raid. You start at the bottom of the mountain, where you are very likely to meet Chip. Chip is an already established character who shows newcomers the wonders of the mountain. So you follow...
Chip isn't in... Wait, Chip is not in Targon? It's... Okay, so I know his card in Legends of Runeterra is literally in Targon, but he's next to Malphite. Isn't he in Ixtal with Malphite? Wait. Okay. Lore question.
Him around
I guess it's supposed to be a genuine reaction, right? But I'm pretty sure he's in Ixtal.
This place has plenty of earth elementals who came alive due to the mountain's magic. Now, as I say this, don't confuse the earth elementals with Malphite. Malphite comes from Ixtal, which is quite far away from Targon. Also, he's a good guy, we don't want to fight him. But from the earth elementals who would likely protect this place,
I guess
we have, for example,
only Malphite is there, Chip is in Targon.
In League of Legends. But the biggest of them all is the Stonebreaker. This one would be an excellent introductory boss. You know, you're fighting the mountain itself. And yes, I know he's a bit too big, but you can shrink him for gameplay purposes. WoW has...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, gameplay purposes, you know what I mean? Like, you know, fighting Aurelion Sol, have some gameplay bullshit to do it so you have the power fantasy of fighting Aurelion Sol. I think that's fine, especially if at the bottom of the mountain you're gonna fight a fucking mountain. You know what I mean? I pull my secondary computer on lurk when I'm work. Gotcha.
Has been notoriously known for inconsistent boss sizes, and it's fine. Anyway, after Stonebreaker, we go further up the mountain, and suddenly we start meeting all the lesser dragons and their worshippers. The coolest of these are the White Flame Dragons. There is also an important dragon who serves as a beacon to the other dragons, called Inviolus Vox. But the one that could likely become a boss would be the Eclipse Dragon. That's because this dragon is quite precious to the natives on the mountain, which would be boss number 3. You see, further up the mountain, we start...
Wait, what the fuck was boss number 2?
Which Eclipse Dragon?
Wait, what was...
Mountain. And
wait, what was boss number 3?
You know, your...
Wait, hold on.
Is the Stonebreaker. This one would be an excellent introductory boss.
That's 1.
You know, you're fighting the mountain itself. And yes, I know he's a bit too big, but you can shrink him for gameplay purposes. WoW has been notoriously known for inconsistent boss sizes, and it's fine. Anyway, after Stonebreaker, we go further up the mountain.
Did he mention a second boss?
We start meeting all the lesser dragons and their worshippers. The coolest of these are the White Flame Dragons. There is also an important dragon who serves as a beacon to the other dragons, called Inviolus Vox. But the one that could likely become a boss would be the Eclipse Dragon. That's because this dragon is quite precious to the natives on the mountain, which would be boss number 3. You see, further up the mountain, we...
Second boss is Eclipse... He just said it was boss number 3!
Natives on the mountain, which would be boss number 3.
What?
You see, further up the mountain, we start encountering the tribes.
Sorry.
There are the Lunari who hide in the shadows because they are being suppressed and they are relatively friendly, just like the Rakor. But the Solari are fanatics who blindly protect the Celestial Realms at any cost. Even in the cinematic, you can see how they are protecting the gateway that is leading to the peak of the mountain.
So the natives are boss number 3. Oh, gotcha. I definitely think the Rancor, the Lunari, should definitely be the faction that you side with. I mean, they'll probably do like you pick a side or whatever, if you want to be a Solari or a Lunari. But yeah, Solari are just good bad guys. They're fanatics. You know what I mean? I can even see a Leona boss fight in the story of getting up there. Plus, I mean, it's fucking Pantheon. Who wouldn't want to join Pantheon? I mean, maybe the Rancor or whatever they're called join up with the Lunar. I don't know.
Even though it would be cool if Riot allowed us to fight Leona herself, champions in League of Legends tend to wear pretty thick plot armor. So instead, it would be cool if we could fight one of Leona's champions.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit. If people are playing a League MMO, they want to fight League of Legends characters. I don't think anyone cares if they don't kill the League of Legends characters. Like, halfway through the fight, Leona could just be like, fuck, I can't do this. Lunari, other Solari Stormmen, you have to leave. You won the fight. The boss like it to 0. JRPGs do this shit all the time. No. Put Leona in. Let me kick Leona's ass. It happened in the Ruined King game, too. You fought Vikank like he didn't fucking die. You fought Viego, he didn't fucking die. You know, it's about the fighting.
Known as Daylight Spear, Ravoon. Anyway,
I disagree, Netcrit. I have a different opinion.
The first one to meet us here would be the Infinite Mind Splitter. This is a legendary draconic creature with a very unique ability. It is told that its gaze gives you so much knowledge and insight that your mind crumbles beneath it. So fighting this boss would be all about getting buffs from it, while being careful not to get too many buffs because it would kill you. And then, after getting past
That's
the
a pretty cool
Infinite Mind
mechanic, I
Splitter,
like that.
we would arrive at the last stand of the mountain.
I like that idea
the
for a
Arbiter
boss.
of the Peak. The last Guardian standing in the center of the peak, separating mortals from the celestial realms. This is the creature that leads the mortals who survive the climb
Its
directly
gaze
to
give
the
you
celestial.
insight.
In fact, that's what you can see here. He is guiding Tiari the Traveler to the celestial realms, where they would become the Traveler. But also, in case of emergency, the Arbiter serves as a guardian against unwanted visitors. Two things could happen here. Either we fight the Arbiter to get its approval to pass into the celestial heavens. In this case, perhaps the Arbiter can test us with the lesser celestial beings. Or we simply have to destroy the Arbiter. In this case, the Arbiter would probably fight us with the golems. And finally, perhaps after beating the Arbiter, we are granted access to the celestial realms. And while, again, I doubt we would be able to fight Aurelian's soul, perhaps we
Let
could
us fight him.
one of his creations that is endangering the world. We have two of them that stand out. The first creation is simply known as the Great Beyond. Aurelian Soul himself calls it his magnum opus. This is essentially a smaller celestial dragon created in Aurelian's image. So this would be like fighting Aurelian himself, except this would make sense. The one I believe might be a bit more appreciated, however, would be the one known as the Scourge. This is also a celestial being created by Aurelian himself, but League of Legends players might recognize this one as the pure celestial version of Baron Nashor. It is believed that the physical Baron was born out of the pure image. So, the Scourge being the final boss would be a really cool nod towards the League of Legends community. See what I mean? I just made up a 7-boss raid in a heartbeat. And I skipped a lot of details just so this video wouldn't be too long. There are the celestial beasts, the demons trying to consume the heavens, the dragon roost near the peak where dragons are born, the starhounds, Esmus, the breath of the world, and so on.
Thank you.
Designing this raid was simple because the lore and the setup is already there. Once again, I did not make anything up. All of this already exists in the universe. And Runeterra has a lot more places just like this one, so let's have a look
Did
at
people in the
raid
previous
number
video think
3.
he made shit up?
The one raid I know as a fact people
With
would
all
love
these
to see
images?
is a Darkin raid. You can pull this off in a lot of different ways, but since the roots of the Darkin lore are in Shurima, the raid would most likely be in the deserts. Super quickly,
I'm curious
in case
to
you
this
forgot,
one.
the Shuriman Empire rose to power
How he
after
would,
it
word
started
this
using
one.
the Sun Disk to reflect celestial magic into their soldiers, and turning them into the god warriors known as the Ascended. The Ascended were guaranteed immortality, however their minds were as fragile
that's my
as they were
stomach.
before. After these Ascended fought the maddening void beasts released by their neighbors, they started going a little bit mad. But their minds finally snapped when their emperor died too and there was no one to give them directions. The story goes that a Darkin known as Zolani, who used to be a great healer, invented blood magic and used it to heal the other Darkin.
Oh
But
shit, I didn't know this lore. I didn't know, this is with the, fuck, I missed the video that he did. Yeah, no, that's not it. I missed this video. Shit, okay. So this is new lore to me. I didn't know
today-
this.
But
Because Zolani is the new Darkin that's in Legends of Runeterra, and she comes with her own lore, and I didn't know the lore at all. I want to say he made it out, but then again, I don't know the lore. True.
by which she also infused them with the blood magic, with a secret plan to
Lewd
use
lore.
the blood magic later to control them all. This was Zolani's secret plan to stop the rampaging Darkin. Unfortunately, the Celestials noticed that the Darkin were very dangerous, and they started sealing them inside special weapons. The sad part is, Zolani herself was also sealed inside her blades. So since Zolani was sealed away, there was nobody to control the others. And as a nice bonus, the remaining Darkin were now empowered with blood magic. Fortunately, in the end, the Celestials sealed all the remaining Darkin inside their weapons too. But stupidly enough, the Celestials let mortals to safeguard these Darkin weapons. So of course, some people were tempted to pick up the weapons and use them for their wars. At which point, the Darkin immediately dominated the minds and bodies of those
Immediately.
So yes, these rampaging god warriors managed to free themselves. So now, let's quickly go through those who would serve as big raid bosses. Perhaps the most famous one, and as far as we know, the most powerful one, is Aatrox. After Aatrox was sealed away, his blade was picked up by a random warrior in the north. Of course, Aatrox immediately dominated the warrior's body, and since then he's been using blood magic to drain the dead around him, and make himself bigger. That's what you can see in his old cinematic. He starts small, but gets bigger the more things he kills. In fact, it got to such a point where Aatrox became the only being to ever kill a celestial god. As I mentioned in the last video, Aatrox stabbed someone wielding the power of the aspect of war so hard, the aspect of war was wiped from the stars. So out of all the Darkin, Aatrox is the ultimate end boss.
He gets bigger the more he gets dominated? No, it's the other way. He dominates and that makes him bigger.
Now, Zolani has canonically not returned yet.
Good morning, Mocha.
That she might come back in the future. Also, as a fun fact, in the most recent cinematic, you can see that Talia and Kaisa arrive in front of the faceless statue of Zolani. Next, there is also Varus, a Darkin who was sealed inside a bow inside a well. And he got freed after 2 hunters fell into the well.
He's two-thirds gay.
Varus's body is actually occupied by 3 souls.
He's two-thirds gay.
And the Darkin. One could say he's
Not
the embodiment of 2.5 men. And there is also
That's funny.
Kain, the one holding the scythe of a Darkin known as Rast. But as far as we know, Kain is pretty good at resisting Rast's power. So I doubt Rast would be freed. Also, Kain is a League of Legends champion. So in order for Rast to come out, Kain would need to die. And I don't think that's possible with all the plot armor.
So this is kind of a tangent. I think if Riot wasn't pussies, 2 things. One, I think the best ending for Kane's story is if he fucking eats shit and Ross gets free. I definitely think that is the best way to end Kane's story. He eats shit, he dies, Ross gets free, and then the other characters have to deal with Ross. I feel like, you know, he's the ultimate greedy boy. He has the shadow magic. He's just like, I'm gonna control the Darkin. He's way in over his head. He's a cool character, and a lot of people love him. That's the only way to end his story, genuinely. I think it's the only satisfying way to end his story. Riot is coward, so they'll probably never do that. I also think Gangplank should have died at the end of the Ruined King game, but I guess that's just me. That's a tangent. Just a tangent about Kain and Ross. They should kill him off. They should kill him off.
But we are still not done yet. Next, from the lesser-known Darkin, there is also Harazi, who was sealed inside a small emblem. Naganeka of Zurita, who was sealed inside a giant ballista. As you can see, she looks a little bit like a chicken, and that's because it is believed that a chicken touched the ballista and the Darkin took over the chicken's body.
What?
And
what? What? That's not canon. What? 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 We have a chicken Darkin? There's no way that's canon. He made that up. Okay, I now understand why he keeps saying he doesn't make any of this shit up. What are you talking about? A chicken touched the ballista?
Naganeka of Zurita, who was sealed inside a giant ballista.
What?
As you can see, she looks a little bit like a chicken, and that's because it is believed that the chicken touched the ballista and the Darkin took over the chicken's body.
What?
And lastly, there is Tarosh, who was sealed.
It's a fucking chicken Darkin? What? Are you kidding me? Imagine you were in Shurima thousands of years ago, and they fucking pick you for the ascension process. You become a demigod amongst men, a slaughterer of hordes of people. Then you get blood magic on top of that. You become the ultimate fucking super warrior. They seal you away for 1,000 years, whatever, but you are waiting. You are buying your time for someone to touch that ancient ballista and for you to take over their body, for you to become the ultimate super warrior again in the modern world, and a fucking chicken touches it. A fucking chicken! And you become a goddamn chicken with a fucking ballista on your back. Are you kidding me? What the fuck? I cannot believe that's real. What the fuck?
And the ballista, as you can see, she looks a little bit like a chicken, and that's because it is believed that the chicken touched the ballista and the Darkin took over the chicken's body. And lastly, there is
Nugget has ascended. I'm only gonna call that one the chicken. I'm only gonna call that Darkin the chicken now. What the fuck? Jesus, I'm glad I watched this video. What the fuck?
Because it is believed that a chicken touched the ballista and the Darkin took over the chicken's body. And
God with the power of 21 spices, yeah.
Massive halberd. The reason why this Darkin raid would work is because all the Darkin have a common goal. They all hate Zolani. They see her as a betrayer who was trying to control them. So in this raid, we would likely fight.
I don't know any of this lore.
As we are trying to get to Zolani.
I guess it was a new story I missed.
We would face Aatrox as the final boss, since all the Darkin wars began with Aatrox and Zolani starting a civil war. Also, it turns out that Aatrox was the general of all the other Darkin, so killing Aatrox would be the perfect end to the Darkin chapter. But let's not forget that Riot is already teasing a new Darkin. The next champion in League of Legends might be a dog that picked up a Darkin dagger.
Beautiful.
And if you're wondering why we would raid this place, first of all, the Darkin are pretty one-sided bad guys. But we could be led here by Nasus and Sivir. Nasus is a
where would this dungeon, has he said where the dungeon would take place? Like, he just said like a string of fights, right? Like, where are we going? Like, what are we raiding in this raid? Like, a tomb where the Darkin are just chilling out? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know, like, with my own knowledge, where we would have a Darkin raid. Like, a temple, I guess, where you come in, I don't know why they would just be chilling out, though, somewhere in the Stream and Dead. Yeah, if the Darkin are free, they're just instantly, as soon as they're free, just going to slaughter everything, right? Like, there's no other option. They're like, their blood magic is in their brain. Like, as soon as they're free, just slaughter. Maybe it's a defense-type raid? I don't know why they would come and trickle in one at a time, though. You know, like, if they're raiding a place, all of the Darkin together, they're gonna attack all at once. So I don't know if that makes sense. But, like, maybe if you're defending some player in Shurima, and then they come in because they're just bloodthirsty monsters. Like, I don't get... Maybe not all the Darkin? I don't know. Like, the connotations of a raid, I feel like, implies, like, a dungeon. Like, you go to a place to raid it. Like, you storm a castle, and you kill everyone in there, right? It's an offensive thing, right? But Aatrox, for sure, he got insane. Or the other one's fine. I don't know. But, like, you know, I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
Avoided corruption, so he would be likely happy to put down his former
So just like
brothers
a
and sisters.
boss rush.
And Sivir is holding the very first blade to be ever used to seal a Darkin. So once again, the lore is already there. And aesthetically, we have a good idea of what it would look like too. We would start outside around the temples of Zolani, which look creepy and corrupted. And later we delve beneath them to where the land is tainted.
Okay, so he explains it. Temples of Zolani. I don't know the new lore, so I can't say yay or nay to that.
Let's stay in Shurima, because if there is a raid I would personally love to see, it is the raid on Narimazeth, a city that is in ruins. That's because Narimazeth was the place where Shurimans tried to build the very first Sun Disk. This first version failed, and instead of the Ascended, it was only producing the Bakai, which are broken, twisted versions of the glorious Ascended. And in the end, the entire city collapsed onto itself. After that, the Shurimans tried to build the Sun Disk again, but this time in the middle of the desert. But now, why would we want to raid these ruins?
Is that where,
well, that's because
Xerath
this city is being rebuilt by Xerath.
Yep.
The most powerful arcane
Most of them would be noble warriors, so probably would only ever roll a 1v1.
Pure arcane energy by the Sun Disk itself. Long story shorter. When Emperor Azir was a child, he became friends with a nameless slave. And despite slaves being forbidden from having names, he called him Xerath. Throughout the years, the two became as
they
close
had
as
armies
brothers,
and fought against each other.
studying culture and history whenever possible.
Yeah.
Later on, despite his father hating him, Azir became his only surviving son. So unless his mother gave birth to another child, he would become the emperor anyway. Well, in secret, Xerath simply made sure she would not give birth to another child. Usually he did it by corrupting the infant in her womb, because it turns out this entire time Xerath was trying to break his roots from slavery. And now he had the ambition to gain power himself. So he justified these murders by telling himself that he was protecting a friend. Despite his efforts, the queen did give birth to another child. So Xerath summoned a storm and let lightning kill the queen and the child. Eventually, all these events led to Azir becoming the crowned emperor of Shurima with Xerath by his side. From this point on, Xerath was waiting for Azir to finally get rid of slavery. Which never happened. Despite Azir being the most beloved emperor in history, he allowed slavery to keep going on. And that angered Xerath. At the end of the story, the emperor was chosen to become an Ascended himself. But during the ceremony,
this is all very necessary.
Xerath was so full of his BS, he incinerated him and forced all the power of the Sun Disk into himself. This resulted in Xerath's body being turned into pure arcane energy, the death of Azir, and the collapse of the Sun Disk and the destruction of the entire empire. You wanna know the twist at the end? If you read the story from Azir's perspective, you learn that he did want to remove slavery. He just wanted it to be a surprise. In fact, he even...
Sometimes League lore is, you know, it's like 12, 13 years of lore. Sometimes it hits, dude. Sometimes it hits. Sometimes it doesn't.
That he did want to remove slavery.
God.
He just wanted it to be a surprise. In fact, he even announced it just as Xerath betrayed him. But Xerath already murdered way too many people, so even though he really wanted to stop, it was too late to go back. So Xerath doomed the entire empire. And yes, because
Azir's lore is baller. It's not my favorite. Azir and Xerath's lore. It's really not my favorite.
the Emperor died,
Bruh,
Xerath
moment.
is also technically the reason why the Darkin exist. I already mumbled about the lore for way too long, so just know this. Nasus's brother, Renekton, bound Xerath in a sarcophagus, and he locked himself with Xerath in a tomb. Many years later, scavengers opened the tomb and released Renekton and Xerath. As I said, Xerath is currently in Nerimazeth, and he is actually trying to rebuild the original Sundisk. We don't really know why he is doing it, but I think it's safe to assume that he just wants more power. But you know what it smells like to me? It smells like a big old setup for a future raid. In Legends of Runeterra, you can see Xerath with all his worshippers. You can also see all the mini-bosses around him. Especially we know about Demi Yin the Unbound. But besides all of these heralds and acolytes, this raid would also have the Bakai, the original experimental ascended who come from this city. But also we would fight Renekton himself, because it turns out after hundreds of years of being locked in a tomb with Xerath, Xerath broke his mind by whispering to him that Nasus betrayed him. He purposefully led him to rot
Mind
in the
break?
darkness. That's
Mind
why
break?
Renekton
Mind
is
break?
quite crazy these days. It all goes back to Xerath, who might be the ultimate villain of Shurima. For the next raid, why don't we play off of the success of Arcane? No spoilers,
Cool.
don't worry.
Cool.
Previously, when I told you about the city Spiltover and Zone, I showed you that at the very bottom of that place you can find the ruins of an ancient Shuriman city. But that will become just a dungeon. The one that would become an
What? It says who? Says who? I think that could be a cool raid. You go down to the things, you fight a giant void monster? Or some creature? Some old Shuriman Ascended or some shit?
I told you about the city
It's
Spiltover
for real
and
estate.
Zone. I showed you that at the very bottom of that place you can find the ruins of an ancient Shuriman city. But that will become just a dungeon. The one that would become an interesting raid
Seraphine. We're gonna fight Seraphine League of Legends. We're gonna punch her in the mouth.
would be the Empire of Renata Glask. After I mention this, I know a lot of
Interesting.
you will be confused.
Interesting.
After all, Renata Glask is just a rich baron from Zone. How can she support an entire raid?
Well, just
in
raid a
this
factory.
case, it is all built on two factors. First of all, Renata is way too big of a character to be removed in just a dungeon. But more importantly, Renata Glask released this year, and she was released as yet another big villain, after all the other already established villains in Piltover and Zone. She simply really feels like a setup for something in the future, because after already
No,
having
okay, I feel like he's sniffing way too much copium here. I feel like he I don't know. I don't feel like Riot puts this much. I think it's just like, how do I say it? I don't think Riot makes a character intentionally just like, this is where the character is going. We have this story planned in 2027, this planned here, right? I just think their writing is made in such a way where the character is in a sort of transitional state and they don't finish the story to keep people hooked in. You know what I mean? Like, I 90% don't think they wrote Ari or Yasuo with the intention, oh my god, they're gonna be in the Ruined King game, they're gonna fight Viego. No, they wrote a homeless soldier and a hot-ass fox girl. He's not a soldier, a homeless monk and a hot-ass fox girl with open-ended endings. And they're just like, we could do something. I genuinely don't think Riot makes costumes, that's about the extent of the death effort. I think they put more effort in that, you know, like they have like a ton of artists on the team. I definitely don't think they made Renata Glass with the intention, oh, she's gonna be a raid boss. There's no fucking way. They just made a cool-ass boss bitch character who is a Chem Baron in Zon with an open-ended story that they can do things with in the future. That's what they're doing. None of this is intentional. I'm willing to bet, like, none of this is intentional. Like, Arcane was special because they literally worked on it since 2013. And they had all these ideas, they put all these things, blah, 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 right? So, you know, but even then, like, they didn't make, what's a character? They didn't make Seraphine specifically, because Seraphine came out before Arcane, right? They didn't make Seraphine specifically to connect with Arcane. What's the other Piltover Zon champ that came out? They didn't make Echo specifically so they could write him into Arcane. You know, it was just ideas with open endings that they could do things with these characters. Renata Glass and Ziri, two characters from Zon, who came out after Arcane, but would develop around the same time. They didn't make them to be involved in Arcane. It just, and they weren't, you know?
Singed and Urgot and Victor as villains in Zone, Riot didn't need to make up another. It feels obvious they released Renata to be a villain supervising the other bad guys of Zone. Before her, Zone didn't really have a main villain, so obviously she is now filling that role. Her lore is making her the main boss of Zone. Her raid would be very clear in its structure. We would follow the detective case of Caitlyn and Vi as we try to find her hideout. Perhaps Camille, an extremely dangerous assassin from Piltover, would be also interested in killing her. From that point on, we would literally raid her place with the Wardens. As a nice bonus, people would love to see the popular champions Zeri and Echo.
That zippy happy-go-lucky skaters that fit into Arcane.
From the street.
I disagree. I definitely think they could have write Zeri into Arcane. I think they can write Zeri and Seraphine into Arcane Season 2. I don't think it'd be that crazy. At all. Echo League of Legends does not fit into Arcane. Echo Arcane fits into Arcane. I will even go as far to say Vi League of Legends does not fit into Arcane. Vi Arcane fits into Arcane. Like, they rewrote these characters. That's why it's not canon. Echo is not the same character. He doesn't have the same backstory. So they could definitely 100% do the same thing with Renata, Zeri, and Seraphine. All of them. I agree. I mean, I disagree with what you're saying. Vi League of Legends is just a cop who abuses their power. You know what I mean? I will be sad if they put Seraphine into Arcane Season 2. I'm gonna be ecstatic. I don't know what they're gonna do with Seraphine. She's just gonna be like, I don't know, a girl with her headphones on who's like can't function in the street or something. Yeah, no, it could definitely. Echo's backstory might have just been expanded. Such a boring garbage character. I agree. I'm not going to talk about, I'm not going to monologue on Seraphine again.
But the last puzzle piece is, why would we raid Renata? Well, the Glask family owns Glask Industries, which is the most luxurious brand in Piltover and Zone.
So we need perfume
and really fancy limb replacements. And unfortunately, this brand reflects a bit of real life, since these fancy formulas are developed down in Zone, using slave labor. But there is also a darker twist. All their products are infused with a chemical formula, which can turn their customers into mindless rampaging husks at any moment. It's kinda like Apple. Now, since Renata is a recent champion, that's all her story really has. She is probably the most powerful Baron in Zone.
It'd be really cool if they wrote Seraphine into Arcane and actually gave her some fucking character. I don't know what they do with her.
See when she would unleash it.
Sky's open.
Me, I normally wouldn't think that this would be a great raid, but this would be very different from raiding dragons, which would
why wouldn't it be a great raid? I don't get it.
But also remember,
is there something about raids? Like, is there a place that doesn't work as a raid? Like, if you're raiding a fucking preschool setting and you fight a evil witch stepmother, like, if the gameplay is fine and the visuals are cool, like, what makes a raid? I don't know. I don't play MMOs. I don't know, too much D&D experience, because I feel like in D&D, if you have a good dungeon master and good, like, design, anything could be a dungeon. So in the same way, I feel like anything could be a raid. Like, you could literally start at a Zon skyscraper and have a boss fight the Piltover rooftops. That sounds like an amazing dungeon to me. Killer.
This is
Axe metaphor, yeah.
Arcane's fame, and I doubt Riot would pass on that opportunity. That's why I feel confident we will meet Renata in the MMO.
And also, like, I don't know if I agree with him being like a big boss and that we need a big boss for an MMO. Urgot could have easily done all of these things. Like, you could easily put the thing in reverse and have Urgot be the boss fight. Like, why Renata specifically? I don't know.
Now we are diving into the
top
3 raids. I am extremely confident that some form of these
dungeons and raids are very different.
That's for
Fair Bagman. I probably just don't know.
These big villains are way too big.
Would you play critically acclaimed? I don't think I've done a raid. I haven't done a raid in Final Fantasy XIV.
But also,
I've never done a raid before.
Into world-threatening enemies that have to be dealt with. With the first of these being Viego, the Ruined King. There is not a sliver of a doubt we will see the Ruined King in the MMO. You can point a gun to my head, tell me to guess a villain in this MMO, and I will smile knowing that I survived. It would be unimaginable to ignore him. Now,
just like we're getting PvE? Just like we're getting PvE net crit? Just like we're getting PvE in the Star Garden event net crit? He's huffing that big copium. What's up, Austin? Welcome to stream.
Me right now is that Viego's story is massive. On top of the normal story he has in League of Legends, he got his own book that is 400 pages long, the entire RPG game called Ruined King, which is focusing on his reawakening, and League of Legends got its own in-game event that was focusing on pushing his lore forward, which also included 3 cinematics. Right now, Viego has the most lore out of any champion in this universe.
That's so sad.
Let me summarize it as quickly as possible.
So sad.
Viego was a Camavoran prince who was forced into becoming the king at
So
an early
sad.
age. Because of this, he was not ready to become a king, and many would not consider him a really good king. Still being a teenager, he often threw tantrums in the style of Kylo Ren. To keep the kingdom from crumbling, he relied on his 2 advisors, Kalista and Nuno Necrit of Camavor. Yes, that's the character named after me. Eventually, Viego met the love of his life, Isolde, a woman whom he loved very, 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 very deeply. He loved her so much that he would do anything for her. But she didn't abuse it. Isolde was actually a very good queen. For the majority of Viego's ruling, he waved the kingdom's problems
How are you doing?
away
I'm doing pretty
just
good.
so he
Doing
could
pretty
be with
good.
Isolde. Until the day someone tried to poison Viego to finally remove him from the throne, and instead they poisoned
Good
Isolde.
job,
This
Callista.
is where Viego's dark side really started to show. After trying absolutely everything
Apparently the book, I haven't read it yet, but apparently the book does a good job of showing how it's fucking everyone's faults. All the characters involved are responsible and lead to the ruination, which is very interesting.
imaginable, nobody was able to heal his queen, and Viego's angry depression started taking over him. After weeks of desperate searching, Viego found out that there may exist a hidden place called the Blessed Isles,
Her eating is
which
stinky.
held the sacred blessed waters which could heal anything. And so he sent Callista away to find the Isles. After a long adventure, Callista succeeded and she confirmed
So
that
what?
the
I probably
blessed
should have
waters
asked
did
this
indeed
before I
exist.
started the
So
fucking
on the
video,
next
but what
day,
is a
Callista
raid
brought the
exactly,
queen
and how is it
and the
different than
king and
a
their
massive
soldiers with
dungeon?
them, so that they could all heal the queen and be
It's like
happy
it's like
ever after.
12,
But of course,
16
there was
players
a dark
playing,
twist.
right?
The queen died
Raiding
before
like
they
a
arrived on the
large
isles.
area,
And the priests
ton of
confirmed
enemies,
that they can heal
fuck ton of
anything,
enemies, and then
as long as the person is alive. But that didn't stop Viego from trying. So after the priests denied him entrance to the waters, Viego massacred everyone who stood in his way, and following a creepy warden called Thresh, he arrived at the waters and dunked the queen in. For a moment, the waters did resurrect the queen, but then she was turned into a wraith, who killed Viego with his own blade, which caused his soul to be absorbed by the blade. I'm skipping a lot of details here, so just know that yes, the blade can absorb souls. We'll actually talk about the blade in the next MMO video, whenever that one comes out.
nice.
Anyway, after
It's like a
Viego
dungeon
was
on
killed with
crack.
his own blade, everything exploded in necromantic magic. His queen's soul was shattered into fragments, and the entire place was turned into the Shadow Isles. For 1,000 years, Viego's soul stayed there in the blade. Until the Pirate King Gangplank was told by Thresh that he could totally pick up the blade. His mind was totally strong enough to resist the power of the king. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. And the moment Gangplank picked up the blade, his
Sick-ass
mind
boss
and body
fight.
was dominated by Viego, who
Should've
then
died
used
here.
that body to fully release himself back into the world.
He should have
After
died
that,
here.
Even though everyone's been dead for 1,000 years.
No,
Viego's
not there. He should have died stopping Viego. He should have sacrificed himself somehow to redeem himself. If we wanted to redeem the character, I think that's a good place to take it, especially when you parallel to Misfortune. He should have redeemed himself, sacrificed himself, stopping Viego.
Still wanted to bring his wife back. And so he started to unleash
Mostly
the
throwing lots of
undead
hours trying to
gifted
finish a
like mist
dungeon to be
all
wiped
around
as a
the
pain in
world
the ass
in
boss.
an attempt to find
Okay.
all the fragments of his queen's soul. Eventually, he succeeded, and he actually managed to bring the queen's soul back. But immediately after that,
I don't think he needed to
he
tell
was
all of
defeated
Viego's
by the
story in this
Sentinels of
video.
Light.
I'm gonna be real.
Remember the undead hunting class from the last video? That's them. And not only did they permanently destroy the queen's soul, because the queen didn't actually want to be resurrected, but Viego's entire story arc ended with him being teleported back to his homeland called Camavor, where he was banished until the present days. You can actually see the end of the storyline in the cinematic called Absolution. And
He's
this
slurping
is
a lot of
why Viego is
Diego.
going to be an incredible boss in the MMO. He does have a lot of story behind him, but more importantly, this entire time we have only seen his young, reckless personality, where he acts like a child throwing tantrums, as he's constantly trying to help someone he is obsessively in love with. But the thing is, his entire life he was chasing his queen. He was ready to go beyond death just to be with her. But now he was imprisoned after learning that the queen didn't want to be with him, but also after her soul was permanently destroyed. So once Viego is unleashed from his prison again, instead of a cocky teenager, we are going to have a pissed off king who has nothing to lose.
Doubt. Press F to doubt. Press B to doubt. No. In the same way Riot will not kill Kane or Gangplank, Riot will not change Viego's personality to grow the character forward. Riot has never changed any of the character's personality to grow them forward. No, he's gonna be the same cocky fucking teenager. He's gonna either not accept that his old is dead, just be eviler because his old is dead, or I guess those are the only two options. There's no way they're gonna actually grow his character to be more interesting. When have they ever done that? Like, what? There's no way. There are so many fangirls from Viego. If you change any part of them, people are going to be upset. That's why they didn't kill Gangplank, because people are going to be upset. Bagman is one of them, and they're not going to kill Kane, because I know people that are going to be upset if they kill Kane.
And that transformation into the Dark King is something I really want to see.
It's not going to happen, buddy.
What the raid is gonna look like. Hordes of risen Kamaboran soldiers, ancient undead dragons.
I do agree this would be a really sick-ass raid, and they should do this.
Thunderer, and even more legendary Hecarim of the Iron Order.
This
but
time will be different, yeah.
Commander Ledros, or maybe Karthus, the Death Singer, and finally Thresh.
They killed Gangplank once, yeah, when League of Legends was good.
The hidden master
and they killed him for a day. I don't know.
Said, Viego has a lot of meaningful enemies serving him, and the raid will be glorious.
I think they could have a corrupted champion too.
I kind of want to cover the entire story of Viego. Wish me luck. For the next raid, we are not.
Wait, what?
Raid will be glorious. Side note: in the distant future, I kind of want to cover the entire story of Viego. Wish me luck.
Okay.
For the next raid, we are not delving too far away from the undead theme.
1 week or two. Did they actually kill him for a week? I thought it was a day.
Badass warrior this universe had ever seen. Super quickly, just for clarity. Viego's deathly magic is really undeath in its true meaning. When he's turning his enemies into undead souls, it's more like he is preventing them from dying, and he's turning them into somewhat living wraiths instead. So he's not really the master of death. As you'll see, that title goes to Mordekaiser. His story begins as a warlord known as Sun Uzal.
It was like
During
a week?
His time,
okay,
the
gotcha.
main continents were occupied by barbaric tribes. Sun Uzal believed that by killing his goes to Mordekaiser.
I actually haven't heard Mord's story in a while. This could be a good refresher.
Begins as a warlord known as Sun Uzal. During his time, the main continents were occupied by barbaric tribes. Sun Uzal believed that by killing as many people as possible, he would please the gods of the afterlife. And so, he forged an empire in blood and death. As his life was near the end, he took great satisfaction in knowing that he would sit at the gods' tables, in the glorious halls of bones. However, when he died, he found no glory waiting for him. Instead, Sun Uzal stood in an empty grey wasteland, with an occasional soul drifting by. He watched as these lesser spirits faded into the fog, unmade and lost in time. But
I wonder if this is like hell, if his spirit wasn't good enough to end up in the spirit realm, like where Spirit Blossom Ari is. I don't know how afterlives work in Runeterra. I don't think they really, you know, like wrote it all out and how it relates to each other, which I guess is fine. They don't have to necessarily, but like, why didn't he go to like the spirit realm? Maybe this is hell. Hell is just like an aimless place where you wander. Thanos.
But Sun Uzal refused to fade. His will, tempered by rage and torment, held him together. In other words, he was simply too angry to die. He started listening to the disembodied whispers around him, and he learned this was Ognun, the language of the dead. Slowly, he came up with a plan. He began whispering temptations into the veil between realms, promising power to any who would listen. And sure enough, he managed to tempt a few cultists into bringing him back to life. Lacking any flesh or bone, he told the cultists to bind his spirit to metal plates, forged in the likeliness of his old armor. And so he rose as the Revenant of Iron and Hate. No longer called Sun Uzal.
What's up, Candacore? Welcome to stream. How you doing?
He was Mordekaiser. Originally, these cultists
wanted to
thank you,
Candacore. I'm doing my goddamn best.
Wars. But instead, Mordekaiser killed them all, and he used their souls to forge himself a brutal mace called Nightfall. With that, Mordekaiser's second conquest of the world started. But this time, he was wielding necromantic magic. All his enemies were confused because it seemed like Mordekaiser only cared about massacre and destruction. Entire generations perished under his campaign. But in reality, there was far more to Mordekaiser's real plan. At the center of his empire, he raised the Immortal Bastion, which became the largest structure on Runeterra. And he used that place to gather information about spirits and death. be it by capturing and studying demons, or torturing Yordles until
Killed the
he
city
could
all I
harvest
got
their
with his
secrets.
mace.
He did everything in his power,
Wait, why?
or torturing Yordles until he could harvest their secrets.
Oh, gotcha.
He did everything in his power to understand the realms beyond. Eventually, Mordekaiser became such a tyrant the entire continent banded against him. But when he was ultimately defeated, it was not because of his enemies, but rather he was betrayed from his inner circle. The Immortal Bastion had a secret cabal led by a witch we know as LeBlanc. They managed to separate Mordekaiser's spirit from his armor and seal the empty armor in a hidden place. As a result, without his physical vessel, Mordekaiser was forced out of the physical realm. What none of the cultists knew, however, is that all of this was according to Mordekaiser's plan. The entire time he was forging a destiny greater than the halls of bones. When he finally returned to the empty wasteland of the afterlife, he was met by the hundreds of thousands who died under his reign. Prevented by his dark magic, they would never fade. They would be his eternal army bound to his will. But even the weakest of the spirits were given purpose. Just like he used the souls of the cultists to forge his maze, the weakest of the souls would become the building blocks of his afterworld. And so, Mordekaiser became the king of the afterlife. And even though he was cast out, with his physical vessel being banished in the Immortal Bastion in Noxus, he is already planning on how to return. And once he does so, after so many people were fed into his realm, he would be so powerful nobody would know how to stop him. Since that is where his story cut off, you know that this is a setup for the future. Even in League of Legends, sometimes Mordekaiser is joked about as a raid boss. Once he starts rolling, you need the entire team to get him down. And Riot would be foolish not to use him as a badass raid boss in the MMO. Especially since we already know some of the other characters that we would see in his raid. When Mordekaiser was conquering the world the second time, he had two demons which
his demons, right.
These would be Tybolg, the giant fire demon, and Atakan, an iron-bound shadow demon. To get to him, we would probably have to get past the one who banished him, LeBlanc, and I wouldn't be surprised if we also met Vygar, the Yordle Mordekaiser tormented.
This is interesting. This is interesting. I don't know about this. I don't know.
Alongside Swain, one of the leaders of Noxus who is actively trying to root out the dark magics from Noxus. So yeah, maybe Mordekaiser's story is not as long as Viego's, but Mordekaiser is built on brutal conquest. His story is simply badass, and you bet.
What I come into, we are reacting to Necrit's video on raid bosses in a possible Riot MMO.
I want to show you. Not all.
Okay, hold on, I'm trying to react to this. How do I feel about this? I definitely think Mordekaiser should be a raid boss, right? But the actual raid itself is the tricky part. Like, what, like, do you storm the Immortal Bastion? How the fuck are you doing that? You know what I mean? Like, plus, if Mordekaiser comes back to the physical world, it's kind of a similar thing to Aurelian Soul. How the fuck do you stop him? You know what I mean? Like, Aurelian Soul being bounded and you just smacking him, right? Seems a lot more feasible than Mordekaiser literally coming back. You know, I think Mordekaiser should be his own expansion. Lorian, I didn't even notice I'm a hype train leader. Let's fucking go, Miss Aphrodite. Let's go. Like, instead of a raid boss, what if he was, like, the story? Like, him awakening in Runeterra was, like, the expansion. Like, after all the regions are done, you know, they're just like, okay, we need another expansion in the world, right? And it's, like, Mordekaiser's coming back. Like, the Iron... What's his name? Iron something? You punched the PP? Thank you, Mr. Outdated. Like, because I don't know how you'd frame a raid boss around Mordekaiser unless you fucking died and, like, stormed his castle, right? Which I guess could be a thing. You storm his castle and halfway through the fight you revive so you don't have to die. That's how they would lead up to the raid. Oh, and even then, yeah, okay, I see what Bagman's saying, because even if he was the entire expansion, it wouldn't just be a boss fight. It would be a raid up to his boss fight for the finale of the expansion. So even then, you would still need a raid, which is hilarious, you know? I don't know. I don't know how they do it. I mean, if they had the balls, you know, because I was saying, I think I got this idea from Necrit, that in order to push the story forward during the Ruination, they should destroy Demacia and make the Demacians kind of refugees trying to live in the plains without their protective city and trying to deal with shit, right? And I thought that'd be really interesting to bring the story. In a similar vein, if Mordekaiser comes back and he permanently, or at least for a long time, fucks up Noxus, like destroys the Immortal Bastion, and you know that big towering structure that was like the power of Noxus, the biggest structure in Runeterra, is now in ruins. Like, you know, you still see like one of the pillars is up there, but it's like it's cracked and shattered. and like you defeat him, and even afterward the Noxians are still recovering, you know, maybe that would be a cool thing. I'm just kind of spouting. Like, I don't know what they do with Mordekaiser. I don't know what you do with Mordekaiser. Like, him even coming back means the Immortal Bastion is getting damaged, and there's going to be, like, actual structural issues in the capital city of Noxus. I want to come by and say hi before I go lay down. Of course, of course. Have a good day. You too. Keep up the good work. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know. I don't know what they would do with Mordekaiser. If they only relegate him to a raid boss, right? Which is just like, okay, maybe instead of going into Noxus, you die somehow. Rise needs you to die to get something from Mordekaiser's palace or something, and then you run in, you fight his revenants, you get the thing, you have to fight Mordekaiser for a little bit, and then you get out of there. Maybe? Doubt he would break the Immortal Bastion since he was the one that built it, but maybe? Oh, you think he wouldn't purposely build it? I'm just saying, like, him, like, resurrecting in his armor, like, maybe an explosion, or him having to rampage out of the Immortal Bastion because people are just gonna be like, hey, we need to stop this. I don't know.
Not only is this raid inevitable, but it is going to be the final raid before Riot starts to get sweaty about their future. Because from that point on, they would be forced into making up new enemies. And that's usually when the lore of MMOs crumbles. With the ultimate endgame in Runeterra being the battle against the end of everything, the Watchers of the Void. Now, I know we already quickly summarized the story of the Watchers when we talked about the world, but we need to quickly do it again because if they get their own raid, it would be a really cool merging of multiple storylines of this universe. Basically, at the beginning of everything, there was nothing, just dark, empty void, until there was a spark of light. This spark of light illuminated the darkness and revealed creepy entities we know as the Watchers, who before this event didn't even know about their own existence. Of course, since this first light woke the Watchers up for the first time since the beginning of time, the Watchers got annoyed and they decided to silence it so they could sleep again. As they drifted closer, we learned that this spark was indeed our reality. So to get rid of the light, the Watchers tried to poke it and taint it. But they were always too big to get through and deal with it themselves. So instead, they reached into reality, stole something, corrupted it, and released it back, in hopes that it would destroy the rest of the reality. But even that wasn't too successful. Eventually, the Watchers started whispering into the light, and the Ice Witch known as Lysandra answered. The Watchers promised her people immortality and great power. In exchange, they asked Lysandra to prepare her world for the coming of the Void. In secret, behind the backs of her two sisters, she agreed. The Watchers empowered the strongest of their followers and turned them into the Iceborn. And soon enough, the Watchers broke into reality in the Freljord. With it, Lysandra's allegiance with the Watchers was undeniable. But as the Watchers rose, for the first time, Lysandra got to see how horrifying they were. And she realized they came here to destroy everything. In desperation, Lysandra sacrificed her sisters and the Iceborn to use their magic to freeze the Watchers beneath the ice. But even that magic wasn't enough. Beneath the ice, the Watchers were only sleeping. They would break out should they try to wake up. So these days, Lysandra is kidnapping the surviving Iceborn. She freezes them in her fortress. She is then using their inherent powers to reinforce the ice. And she is feeding their dreams to the Watchers to keep them asleep. As a bonus,
cool
Lysandra
ass
is
lore.
killing
Cool
anyone
ass
who
fucking
remembers
lore.
the old days, and who could spill out that she actually kinda betrayed all humanity. See, this setup on its own is enough to support a raid. Let's say we raid the Frostguard Citadel, which is where Lysandra is keeping the Watchers frozen. First, we get there by crossing the Howling Abyss. This is the bridge that is incredibly iconic for League of Legends players. This is where you play ARAM. I bet you never noticed that at the end of the bridge, you can actually see the entrance to the Frostguard Citadel. And in fact, the ghastly shopkeeper is one of the soldiers who remembers the coming of the Watchers. After getting inside, we would fight Lysandra's frozen thralls.
Why would we...
These are trolls that Lysandra twisted herself.
If we're here to fight the
but they are
Watchers,
also
wouldn't we be
supported
on the
by
same
the
side as
Harbinger of
Lysandra?
Trolls,
Why are we fighting
whatever that
Lysandra
is.
if
Then we
we're
would
fighting
fight
the
through
Watchers?
Lysandra's army of the Draklorn. These warriors
Why-
dedicated their
why are
lives
we
to
fighting these
Lysandra,
guys if we get on the
knowing
same
that
side?
They are protecting the world from the end of everything.
You
Next,
know,
we
like,
would face the most mysterious
why
creatures
are
of
we
the
fighting
Freljord.
them?
We don't really know what they look like in their pure form. We only know what they look like.
Unless it's a raid on Lysandra, and then after we kill her, or after we beat her, she's like, wait, you don't understand what you did, and then a Watcher shows up, you know what I mean? But, like, if we're there to kill the Watchers, we're on the same side.
Like after they were corrupted by the Watchers.
We
And
wouldn't
these
know
would
that
be
she's
the
a good
creatures
guy?
with their
Okay, that's what
very
I'm saying.
interesting Names. There is She Who Wanders, They Who Endure, and It That Stares. Whatever these creatures used to be, now they are titanic. with their I-beam disintegrating reality. Then of course we would have to get past Lysandra herself before we arrive at the Frozen Watcher. I think it's likely that we are going to fight one of these. And what's cool is that even though this is the toughest enemy this universe has to offer, even if we defeat it, we don't really defeat all the Watchers. That's the clever backdoor of this universe. We can't destroy them all. They are the primal force, there is an endless sea of them. If anything, our reality is a parasite in their void. So if we defeat a Frozen Watcher, all we really do is plug a hole. But the Watchers continue being a threat. Anyway, this Watcher looks strange, doesn't it? It's not really the floating eye that you would imagine. Well, that's because, as it is with all the League of Legends stories,
Necro just made this video to gush about the lore more. He was just like, oh, I'm getting a bigger audience because of Asmongold. I'm gonna gush about the lore I love so much even more. And you know what? More power to him because I do the exact same fucking thing. I made a video where I talked about all of the Five Nights at Freddy's lore.
There is a twist. You see, just as the Watchers are able to corrupt a being, they are also open to being corrupted themselves. The process
oriented like Belvath and shit.
Sides. And so, the more the Watchers interact with humans, for example, the more human-like they become themselves. And since the Watchers in the Freljord were frozen there for thousands of years, Legends of Runeterra shows us that once they would break through, that's what they would look like. They would have many human-like limbs, the story told us they have fur from all the animals, and they even have a creepy fake face. So no, this is not what a pure Watcher would look like. This is a Watcher tainted by the people.
Asmon's fairly impressed with Riot's ideas. I hope they do well. I do too. I hope they do. I hope this thing is the best MMO to ever exist. Well, I'm being genuine. I want Riot's products to be better because I see the potential and I see the work and I see all the art that they put into it. You know what I mean? I was really rooting for the Sentinels of Light and the Star Guardian event. I'm so happy Arcane was so fucking good. You know, I genuinely want the billion-dollar company to succeed. Maybe I don't know if they have a billion, but you know what I mean? Like, I want this to be good. As much as I make fun of Riot, I do it because I care. Because I see the potential. I see what they fucked up in Seraphine. I'm just like, you can do better. Please do better. Please make good art for us to enjoy. Please let me give you the money. That's why I pay for shit in Legends of Runeterra. Because I genuinely believe it's their best, it's the Riot's best game besides the Ruin King, right? And, and I give them money because I want to support the game. Because it's really good. Because I think it's the best card game that's out there. Pretty much everything that isn't League is good. I think so, pretty much.
Where the stories collide. First of all, Lysandra would be the key to freezing the Watchers. She would have to be on our side at the end there. Also, the primal god Ornn constructed the bridge leading to the Citadel, and this bridge was used as a magical seal to help keep the Watchers down there. So Ornn himself would help us. But most importantly, there is another massive storyline that is in Shurima centered around a Voidborn known as Belveth. Because this video is already way too long, just super quickly. You know how the Watchers themselves got tainted?
I mean, Belveth could be a raid, right? The city of Belveth could be a massive raid where you fight Belveth at the end? Couldn't that also be like an amazing raid?
When interacting with reality, down in Shurima, a small pocket dimension formed between the Void and our reality. It was sort of like a cancer growth on the Void. In fact, if you dive deeper into this, you may realize that this is directly correlating to real-life cancer. If you don't know, cancer is just living tissue that decided, hey, I don't want to die. And that's exactly what happened here. As the Void started consuming people in Shurima, it got tainted by the people and it formed self-awareness. Soon, because this cancerous growth inside the Void needed to represent itself, it grew a creature known as Belveth. A Voidborn that looks a bit fishy because she consumed a harbor, but also she doesn't actually like the Watchers because the Watchers want to end everything. And all Belveth wants to do is to live. And so these days, Belveth is consuming entire cities at a time. And she is rebuilding everything with the information she got. With her ultimate end goal being to rebuild all reality. So that she could be reality and she would be strong enough to fight the Watchers. Of course, at this time, she doesn't really have all the information gathered. So whenever she's recrafting cities and people, it all looks uncanny. However, at this point, she consumed hundreds of thousands of people.
Best.
And she is using all of their brain power, so Belveth is very smart. Now, the reason why this storyline is important is because Belveth...
Okay, how smart is she actually, right? Because if I consumed all of... I'm not going to say a real city because I don't want to get insultive. If I consumed all of a medieval city, right? An adventure city, right? No, it's a city. It's a city. So a port city in adventure world, medieval times, right? If I absorbed all the knowledge there, would I really be that smart? How smart is she really?
Once talked to Kaisa, and she offered her a deal. If mortals helped Belveth consume reality faster, she would spare them to be the last she would consume. Belveth said that she did the calculations and she knows that humanity could never beat her. But at least, with this deal, she gave them the chance to create a weapon or maybe find a
I did the calculations, but boy am I bad at math.
hero who maybe could slay her. She knows they could never achieve it, but she is willing to give them the chance. And you see, this is where we
Kinky.
can get another twist. This wasn't confirmed, this is purely my theory, but I believe that there is a way to destroy Belveth. See, Belveth believes that we can't beat her, but the fact is, she used hundreds of thousands of human brains to figure it out. But humans can't even comprehend the power of the Celestials. So I believe Aurelian's soul could destroy her. She just doesn't have the brain power to figure.
It's literally like Thor Ragnarok, just like, you can't destroy me. I know, but he can. Boom! Epic beam from Aurelian's soul.
So what I think is going to happen is that at some point we are going to beat Belveth. She realizes she was wrong, she realizes that humanity is stronger than her when fighting the Watchers, and she decides to help us destroy them. So should we ever get a raid on the Frostguard Citadel, I wouldn't be surprised if before that we got another raid where we delve into Belveth's little pocket dimension, and with her help we move to the north. Or, you know, we just destroy her, that would be way cooler. So all of that is still just a wild
Is there like something super narratively satisfying to defeat Belveth? Belveth? I don't even know. I don't think Zoe beating her would be satisfying. Aesol, eh. She said no humans can defeat me. I don't know. Jax. Jax, that's the satisfying end. Jax and his band of misfits. That would be cool. Just like, no human can defeat me, and he's just like, I ain't no human, babe. Whatever Jax says. Yeah, or if there's a team, I think Jax should definitely be on that team. His city was destroyed by the Void. He's running around getting stronger for like thousands of years. I think that would be the most satisfying thing, if Jax beats Belveth. Maybe Jax becomes a Descended and beats Belveth or something, I don't know. Or I think Bagman had this idea of like Pantheon picking up Aatrox's sword, and they're just like, there's sort of be an agreement between the both of us that they have to put their differences aside to like to fight something. That would also be really cool. And they're both kind of Void related, not entirely. Like they could do that against something else. That'd be really satisfying story-wise. Kaisa can be involved, I guess, because Kaisa's already linked with Belveth and she's the Void fighter. And I guess if Kaisa's involved, Cassidy can be there. I don't know. Get some weird shit. Satisfying Void fighters.
Fact is, we are fighting the Watchers. That is inevitable. And that was all the raids I wanted to show you. All of them are supported by the lore, and it is up to Riot whether they want to do them or not. Except the last 3 raids. Those are happening. There is no way around it. But because people are going to freak out, let me give you some
such a
honorable
copium.
mentions. This universe also technically has the Grim Reaper. While they may have many forms, the most well-known form of death itself is Kindred. We wouldn't really have a good reason to fight them though, since death isn't really an evil entity in this universe, but, you know, they exist. I would also love to fight against Vladimir's Hemomancers. We could also get a raid on the Ursine, with Volibear being the final boss.
That would be really
primal
sick,
god
actually.
of wilderness.
That'd be really cool.
In the east, there is also the mysterious demon known as Ashlash, a 7-handed liquid demon that is locked beneath the earth, in a place known as the 7th layer. Neela is currently wielding its power, and it looks like a setup for the future. Also, there is...
Jesus fucking Christ, not everything is a setup for the future! They just leave the characters open-ending. I feel like leaving the characters open-ending is different from setting up for the future, you know what I mean?
Fiddlesticks, the primal and most powerful demon on Runeterra. Fiddlesticks itself is just a puppet. The demon is what you can see inside the cage. But because Fiddlesticks is roaming around the world, I couldn't really figure out a raid setting. But you bet we are fighting him at some point. If you want creepy video to react to, find Fiddlesticks cinematic. Simply said, the lore supports so much more than what I showed you today. And in the future, I can make a smaller video where I cover the dungeons of this MMO. All being theoretical, of course. But for now, that's it. I'm running out of content, so let's see, what do we have next?
But, hey, my question, why do you hold the lav mic?
Wait, what do you...
Okay, decent bit. Decent bit. They definitely set you up at least a year in advance lore-wise. At least a year in advance. Okay, not every character though. I really don't think Renata Glass was set up to be a raid boss in the MMO dungeon. Physics and Nocturne would be like really cool random events. You're just in Demacia, just randomly just blap, like a nemesis boss. This is not how you make a boss fight. That sounds boring. They did this for their D&D expansion, actually. There was a D&D Beyond crossover Legends of Runeterra that was quickly shut down because they are main competitors with Magic the Gathering. Hilarious. Where it's a like it's a level 1 to 3 quest in starter in Runeterra where you get to pick between you get to play with you had to decide with either Gangplank or MF, and then the final boss is the other one. This is an actual thing that they did. That setting is sick. Legal, right? Wait, which one? Runeterra? Yeah, Runeterra is a 6-second. You don't fight. Oh, I thought there was stats for them. Oh, I thought. Never mind. I thought they gave stats for that for them. Pets and mounts? Not a bad idea. They're like level 14. You know, that's a fair point. They are very strong. PvP raid? This idea is immediately not. My immediate reaction is, this is a stupid idea. Your ideas are dumb. Stop. Oh, it's the same person. That's hilarious. But I could definitely see people being into this. So I think this is I think this is probably a decent idea, just not my thing. See, hold on. Setting up future antagonists. I feel like maybe my definition is wrong, right? So Fiddlesticks is the first of 10, right? Which means 9 of the primary ideas, and then they made Ashlash. When they made Fiddlesticks, there is no way in fucking hell they had Neela's character already thought. When they made Fiddlesticks, when they remade him, excuse me, there is no way when they wrote the first of 10 line, they were just like, okay, one of the demons' name is Ashlash. He's water. Neela is gonna take his shit. There's no way. They didn't write that shit. You know what I mean? They didn't set this up. They didn't have this there. They made Fiddlesticks with a cool line first of 10 because they were just like, okay, we should set up 9 other primal demons down the line at some point. You know what I mean? Like, not all the Targonians. It's still set up. Yeah, probably. Setting up. Not everything has to be planned out. I agree. But I feel like the way Netcrit talks, he feels as if Riot has this a grand 20-year plan. You know what I mean? Like some MCU shit. And I don't think that's the case. I think they just leave things open-ended so they can expand it. They never write a closed door, basically. They always write open hallways. Which is frustrating because characters never get, like, growth or change or anything like that. Yeah, way too much passion. Lamau. You also got big boy character development. I'm exaggerating. I'm exaggerating. Lucian too? Do you think so? Lucian got character development at the end of the Ruination? I don't know. I guess he trusts his wife and lets her go off to Vietnam. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Not that characters never get development. I was wrong. Let me go back. Not that characters never get development, they never get endings. The characters can never end, because if they end, if they die, if something happens to them, you know, they have to return to the status quo so that the game can still exist, so people can still love their favorite characters. The whole his wife coming back? Yeah, I agree with you. Lucian did get some character development there. I completely lost my train of thought. I think I was just complaining about Riot Games. Yeah, I'm just saying that, like, they don't have all this shit right now. They don't need to have all this shit right now, but it feels like people are... This guy, specifically, and Netcrit, feels like this is all written out, and they have all these things planned from day one. I really don't think they do. They don't need to. But, like, I don't want to give Riot more credit than it deserves. It deserves a lot of credit for what they've done. I don't think they have done this. They don't really return to status quo, though. They really just leave the story to pick it up. I feel like everything Riot has done has returned to the status quo. Like, they stopped Viego, and Thresh just took over his job, right? Like, after the Ruination event, everyone went back to their separate lives, except now Vayne is a Sentinel, right? Which doesn't really change anything. She's a monster hunter. Now she's a monster hunter. You know what I mean? Miss Fortune, after her arc in fucking The Ruined King, was just like, no, I'm still on a super revenge plot for Gangplank. Gangplank is still alive now, and Gangplank is missing. It's like, it's the same shit. You know? I don't, like, what has changed? Silas led his revolution. Nothing came of it. Demacia's still racist. He just went off to the Freljord, which I guess is a change. Demacian is now in the Freljord. Trying to think of arcs. Even the characters in the Ruined King, I feel like, went right back to where they started. Yasuo is technically traveling the world, but, like, I don't know. Ruination was just a bad event. Okay, fair. I'll let you say that's an outlier. I feel like it always returns to the status quo, though. What has changed? Okay, so the reworks. Okay, so like Pantheon's story really took the character forward, and then he was in the Ruination, and then he got a story afterwards. But like, yeah, he's still Pantheon. I don't know. What are the reworks? Pantheon's had a big arc in the Ruination too. Yeah. And his story was good acknowledgement, but like, it didn't take his character anywhere. It's just sort of an acknowledgement. It was good. It was great. But I don't know. What do I want? What do I want from Riot Games? I guess it feels like there are no consequences. You know what I mean? There's no stakes because everything just returns to status quo and the characters never die. He's off to fight the Celestials now? Yeah. And so Riot writing, it's not in this grand scheme, this grand Marvel plan where they have these things like 10 years in advance. They just write their characters to be open-ended and they see what see what comes up and what they can do with it. I don't think they wrote Renata to specifically be a raid boss or to be the boss of Zaun. You know what I mean? Like, I think they just wrote a cool character. They gave her the backstory and left her stories purposely open-ended. I forgot the other things that he said that was like obviously a setup for something else. And I'm just like, I don't know. Characters never dying and everything returning to status quo are two different things. Yes, they are. I really feel like Riot does both, though. Like, genuinely. And because of both of those things, it feels like they never get invested. Like, Arcane came out with a statement that the characters don't have plot armor, they need to kill a character, they will. I don't know how true that statement is, but, you know. It's hard to get invested after all this time. I think I'm just rambling. Old woman yells at clouds. I'm just frustrated because I want everything to be good. I want Riot to be good. I feel like they're not. No, they are good. I feel like they can be better. So many mistakes. I'm just crying, sniffing that copium. I'm on the ground. I'm complaining about everything. Never be happy. Never be happy. All right, I think it's time to end the YouTube video. Okay, so reaction. I'm supposed to react to this. If this is a whole hour video, damn. Good video. I think Netcrit has too much faith in Riot Games. I think he's sniffing too much copium. Genuinely. Let me think. What am I thinking? I'd endlessly shit on Riot for League, but their lore is top quality. I agree. I genuinely think their lore and their writing is, Necrit said in one of his videos that he thinks, Runeterra is like the best fantasy world ever written at his experience, and I kind of have to agree. Like, I can't think of anything that comes close to Runeterra with how much I shit on Riot and the decisions that they made. Like, it's just so good lore. Video is good. I obviously said my complaints as they had it. I think he has too much copium, too much faith. I don't think Riot really writes these things out as far as I think they just do what they have. They've done a decent enough job at dealing with story, so they leave everything open-ended so they can do things, as opposed to just, like, having everything set up. Which, again, they don't need to. It's smart the way they write things. It's intelligent the way they write things, to never end, and to never kill off a character so everyone stays happy that their favorite character hasn't died and they have no reason to play League of Legends, right? It's smart. It's good. But wait, I don't remember what my butt was. I don't want to give them too much credit that they write all these things 10 years out in advance, because I really don't think they do. Because when they did, like Arcane, they specifically made a big fucking deal about it. You know what I mean? They specifically were just like, yeah, the story's been in work since 2013. Since Jinx was announced, we were thinking about this stuff. And that's fucking incredible. That's probably why it was so fucking good, you know? I don't think Riot does the same thing with their other shit. Maybe after Arcane, maybe they're gonna start their 13-year plan for the MMO and it's gonna come out and we're literally all just gonna come bricks and shit. Dark Souls lore? Hard disagree. Hard disagree. Not even close, dude. Not even close. I think Runeterra is miles away from Dark Souls lore. And, reaction. I'm trying to react to this video. I'm bad at this, chat. I'm bad at this. Yeah, I think that's all my thoughts. Excited. Hope it's good. I'm not giving Riot too much credit. I'm trying to give Riot a right amount of credit. And, yeah, I guess it's gonna be it for the reaction video. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. I'm still holding out hope in copium. Not as much as Netcrit, obviously. Oh, raids. I should think bosses and raids of Riot's MMO. Let me think. I think Urgot could be his own raid, separate from Regatta Glass. We don't have any bosses in Piltover, right? I don't think so. No. Runeterra, we have Nocturne, which is kind of lame, especially when Fiddlesticks exists, but also Fiddlesticks. That'd be a cool one in Runeterra. Nautilus. Nautilus could be amazing in Bilgewater. I don't know how that would work. Yeah, drinking water potions and go into the sea and fight a whole bunch of sea monsters. I don't know how the Darken Raid would work either, if I'm gonna be honest. I guess they have a temple with Zolani that they could do. Ionian. Anything in Ionian? Ionia, that's like a big raid boss. I mean, Shen's beefy. I don't know how we'd fight Shen. They got dragons in Ionia. Storming the Crowd Guard Castle in Demacia, if you were like part of the Mage Rebellion, would be cool. You fight Tiana Crown's guards and her husband. I mean, in the same vein, Galio, right? Galio's a good guy, but like that'd be a sick ass raid. I don't even know how that would work. You fight Demacians, you fight Mage Seekers, you fight his little goons from Runeterra, and then you fight him. Order of Shadows or Navori Bravo would be good Ionian raids. True. I guess what I'm thinking of raid is like, by idea of a raid, there has to be like a big ass boss at the end. I don't know who would be the Order of Shadows or Navori big boss. You know what I mean? Like Zed? A Shadow Demon? Maybe? Atakan? Some Atakan disciple? Perhaps? Something like that. Order of Shadows would probably be Zed. I see Zed. I don't see a raid boss, but I don't know. Maybe. It's a video game. They can do whatever they want. Shadow Isles, we have Viego. Fucking Ladros would probably still... I don't know if Ladros has... would still be, like, loyal to Viego, but that would be pretty cool. In lore, there's no limit to the amount of shadows you can have. Oh, so it's just an annoying fight of running around trying to find which one's the real one. That's hilarious. Is they all just throw blades at you? The throwing the blades would be great. Like AoEs in MMO you had to avoid, like little orange things in Final Fantasy. You're just like, I'm not gonna step there. His blade throwing be a good thing for that. I'm trying to think of map of Runeterra. I don't know how they'd even implement Vandal City into the fucking MMO. For Freljord, you have the Watchers, Yetis, Ornn, Demigods. I'm trying to think of anything he didn't say. It's the Great North. No one ever goes there. Shuriman he pretty much covered. We know nothing about Ixtal, so... Can I have a raid on Kiana's massive ass? Thank you, thank you. Targon. Yeah, I mean, that covered it. I can't think of anything else. Like, he you know, he knows the lore way better than I do. He picked the big ones. Raid bosses and raids. In terms of bosses, I can only think of like Legends of Runeterra and League of Legends actual champions. Who would be a cool boss, just in general? I don't know, let's look up the roster. Aatrox we went over. Aesol, Belvath, Cho'Gath. I don't know if Cho'Gath has any canon lore at this point. Mundo? I mean, it's not an adventure game, it's an MMO, but Mundo would be a really cool Nemesis type boss in an MMO where you're in Zaun. He just shows up randomly, just like trying to fix you and you gotta like get away from him. At least it'd be interesting with the Vile Maw. Huh. That would be interesting. I don't know how that would work. Like, if Elise was literally on top of the Vile Maw, ayo. Fiddlesticks, Scalio. I guess Gangplank. Hecarim. Actually, Jax would be a pretty sick boss. Jax would be like the Virgil of bosses, where he's the exact same size as you, but he just fucking kicks your ass with all this skill-ass moves. Jax would be incredible. If they make Kai'Sa go like corrupted and really big, like what they did in when they were teasing Belvath, that would be a cool boss fight, like a corrupted Kai'Sa who's like massive, kind of like how her leveled up Legends of Runeterra form is massive. Frost. Kha'Zix is only canon because of Rengar, I think. Kled would be a fun boss. Maokai was a boss, that was fun. Morta. Oh, I missed Kale. Kale would also be a good boss. Naughty. Neela, I guess, could be a similar to Jack's boss, but I hate Neela, so get out of here. Ornn. Olaf. Nocturne. Renata. Rek'Sai, of course. Renekton. Rumble could be interesting. I could see like it would be way less serious, but a Rumble raid where you fight his you're in the mecha arena and you gotta fight his mechs up to him. Like maybe not even a raid, like an Olympus Coliseum type thing. Where you just fight, you know, one after the other. Pit of 100 trials, pit of 100 mechs, and you just fight a whole bunch of mechs until you get to Rumble. That sounds pretty cool. Set, same thing with Set, exact same thing, Fighting Pit. They probably did Rumble's new lore based off Set, Fighting Pit, where you fight Set at the end. And they could throw Samira in there, who cares? Sejuani and her goons. Shyvana, Scion. Did they? He didn't mention Scion. He didn't mention Scion. How do you miss Scion? Oh my god, that would be an amazing raid boss. Sway would be a cool boss. Tonkash could be interesting. Oh, Syndra. Syndra has like ultimate power. Yeah. We don't know what, she just picked up a castle and left. We don't know what the fuck Syndra's doing. That'd be cool. Thresh, Trundle, Urgot, Udyr. Udyr would be oh. They didn't update this website. They updated this website. Same website. Didn't update this picture. Okay. Tryndamere. Champions that would make good bosses. Fuck it. Give me a Vex boss fight. I don't care. Vi, you're running away from the police. Vi and Caitlyn together. That'd be pretty cool. Victor has Goon. Victor could be a raid. Victor could honestly be a raid. You raid his factory to stop him with Caitlyn. I don't hate that. Viego, Vlad, Voli. This whole list is good bosses right here. Warwick. Oh, maybe Warwick fits the Nemesis type boss in a Zaun area. Then yeah, Warwick. There's a lot of shit. There's a lot of bad shit in Zaun. Never go to Zaun. Can't have shit in Zaun. Zerath. Zac. Zac was a good guy, then they made him a bad guy or something, I don't remember. Yon was a cool boss fight in the Ruined King game. Yeah, okay. Zoe would be a piss-ass annoying boss fight. Full Celestial Power Zoe? That sounds not fun. Put it in there. Put it in. Yeah. So in terms of champions, that's what I think would make good bosses. Fiora could be another 1v1 boss like Jax. Boss to kick your fucking ass. Very interesting, very interesting. I think I've rambled enough. That was my opinion. That was my reaction. Feel free to roast me in the comments. Oh my god, this girl's never played an MMO in her life. What is she talking about? She's talking in circles. Who is Mr. Riot? And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow with a new video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.